Sorry guys, I dropped the wrong intro earlier. The world's most powerful superhero, Superman. A hero who has dedicated his entire life to protecting mankind. But when it comes to human greed and selfishness, his dedication seems worthless. Because there are always people out there who will never let peace exist on Earth. And for that, they'll go as far as trying to remove Superman from their path. How does Superman face this battle? Well, to know that, you'll have to watch the full video. Today, I'm talking about this year's release, DC Universe's recent blockbuster superhero movie Superman. So without wasting time, let's dive straight into the explanation. Now, I'm sure most of you already know quite a bit about the most powerful character of the DC Universe, Superman. But still, at the very beginning of the movie, we get a quick look at his origin story. Almost 3 decades ago, a powerful alien child arrived on Earth. On his home planet Krypton, every alien was far more powerful than human beings. But due to some natural causes, Krypton was becoming unstable and eventually started to collapse. To save their son from the destruction, his parents sent him to Earth. Later, a farmer couple found the baby and raised him as their own son. Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent became his foster parents, and they named him Clark Kent. As he grew up, Clark started working as a reporter for a newspaper called The Daily Planet. From his teenage years, he knew he had superhuman abilities. At first, he kept his powers hidden, but eventually, he realized he couldn't just live as an ordinary man, while humanity was drowning in selfishness, destruction, and endless wars. So he finally embraced his true self. Clark Kent became the most powerful superhero on Earth, and people gave him the name Superman. Now, let's get back to the movie's story. At the start, we see Superman flying at full speed and crashing down hard onto the icy sheets of Antarctica. The reason? Just moments earlier, for the first time in his life, he was defeated by a metahuman. Now, metahumans are basically superpowered beings too, just like Superman. But unlike him, they aren't aliens. They're human. A while back, Superman had stopped a war between a country called Bararia and its neighboring nation Zarhalpur. Right after he saved Zarhalpur from Bararia's attack, a metahuman named Ultraman suddenly launched an assault on him. This Ultraman, also known as the Hammer of Bararia, was specifically created to fight Superman. After an intense battle that went on for nearly 3 hours, Superman, for the very first time, lost. Exhausted and wounded, he flew back and crashed near his fortress, the Fortress of Solitude, hidden within the Antarctic glaciers. Seeing his master injured, Superman's loyal superdog Krypto rushed to rescue him. Since Krypto is from Krypton too, he also had some superpowers. Following Superman's command, Krypto dragged him toward the fortress doors. Suddenly, we see a strange structure rising out of the ice. That's Kryptonian technology, which Superman used to build his Fortress of Solitude. This place was designed for him to recover after battles. As the doors opened, Superman's advanced robots carried him inside and began healing his injuries using the powerful yellow sunbeams. Because Superman's greatest power source is this yellow sunlight. No matter how badly he's hurt, if the yellow sun rays fall on him for some time, he heals completely. To ease his pain, the robots also projected holographic images of his parents' old messages. After recovering, Superman once again headed back toward Bararia. Meanwhile, another metahuman called the Engineer followed Superman all the way to his fortress. Just as Superman flew overhead, she caught sight of it. Back in Bararia, Superman's fight with Ultraman started again. But this time, something strange happened. Every single one of Superman's moves seemed like Ultraman already knew them in advance. And the reason? Behind the scenes, helping Ultraman remotely, was none other than Superman's greatest enemy, the billionaire scientist Lex Luthor and his team. We'll find out Luthor's true motives a little later, but for now, just know that he created Ultraman after years of research. Not just Ultraman, even metahumans like the Engineer were part of his team. Luthor had studied Superman's every fight move in extreme detail for years, and that's why he was able to guide Ultraman so precisely that Superman kept getting defeated again and again. Now, the Engineer informs Luthor that she discovered Superman's secret fortress in Antarctica. She even saw the massive structure disappear under the ice. She wanted to drill her way inside, but Luthor ordered her to return for now. On the other side, despite losing to Ultraman, Superman was still loved and respected by the people, With their help, he managed to get out of the ruins. The next morning, we see him back in the office of the Daily Planet as Clark Kent. That day's front page carried the news of Superman's battle with Ultraman. And guess who wrote that article? Clark himself, meaning Superman wrote about his own fight. But no one in the office knew his secret identity, except for one person. And we'll get to that in a moment. Clark's colleagues congratulated him since his article was already becoming a huge hit. In his report, he wrote that Ultraman attacked Superman without any reason. Of course, he'd write that because he is Superman himself. But his reporting partner Lois wasn't entirely convinced and even questioned his bias. Clark responded saying he had an exclusive interview with Superman. Everyone was shocked. How could Clark get so many exclusive interviews with Superman? But they didn't know the truth. Clark was Superman himself. Meanwhile, Ultraman returned to Luthor after defeating Superman. Luthor, at that moment, was in a meeting with the U.S. Defense Secretary. As always, he portrayed Superman as a global threat and demanded permission to use his own metahuman army to deal with him. This metahuman team, called the Planet Watchers, was genetically engineered by Luthor himself. But the generals present in the meeting already knew why Luthor hated Superman so much. In reality, Luthor owned the world's largest arms export company. If wars like the one between Bavaria and Zarhalpur ended, his weapons business would collapse. And since Superman had been stopping wars and destruction from the beginning, Luthor's profits were taking massive hits. That's why he desperately wanted to remove Superman from his way. To strengthen his case, Luthor even brought up Superman's Antarctic fortress. According to international law, Antarctica cannot have any kind of military installation. Yet Superman built this advanced fortress there without anyone's permission. So Luthor insisted Superman should be held accountable. But the defense secretary and generals told him clearly, without solid proof, they couldn't take action against Superman. Later that evening, Lois went back to her apartment after work. Suddenly, she heard noises in the kitchen. Grabbing a stick, she slowly approached, only to find Superman himself cooking in her kitchen. Yes, Superman wasn't just her colleague, he was also her boyfriend. Lois was the only person, besides Superman's parents, who knew Clark Kent was Superman. Remember earlier I mentioned Superman had a secret, which is why nobody recognizes him as Clark? That secret is his high-tech Kryptonian hypnoglasses. These glasses bend the surrounding light in such a way that his face looks completely different to others. And because of this, none of his colleagues or anyone else could ever recognize him. After spending some romantic time together, Lois suddenly asked to take an interview of Superman. She turned on her recorder and started casually questioning him. Superman admitted that he interfered in the Bavaria-Zarhalpur War to prevent innocent deaths. He didn't feel the need to consult the U.S. President or the Defense Secretary for it. Even though Lois was his girlfriend, during the interview she didn't hold back. She grilled him with tough, professional questions. That sparked some heated arguments, and Superman even switched off the recorder a few times. Eventually, Superman confessed that he had threatened Bararia's President Basil Karkas to stop the war. He also revealed that when his father sent him to Earth, he sent a message along with him. Although half of that message was destroyed, Superman believed his parents had sent him to Earth for the betterment of mankind, and that's why he continued to fight for peace. But when Lois kept pushing him with questions, Superman ended the interview. They argued a bit more, and finally, Superman left her apartment. Meanwhile, Luthor arrived in Antarctica with his two metahumans, the Engineer and Ultraman. Their mission was to break into Superman's fortress and find something that could be used against him. Now, how would they even access such a fortress? Well, turns out Luthor was so genius that he had already discovered a way to unlock the fortress door. Exactly how he did it. That's something the movie reveals later. And trust me, the whole movie is packed with such suspenseful moments. If I reveal them all now, the fun would be ruined. So you'll need to watch the full video to experience it. Anyway, once the fortress rose from beneath the ice, Luthor and his team easily went inside. Instantly, Superman's robotic guards attacked them. But Ultraman and the Engineer quickly destroyed them. The Engineer's entire body was made of a special substance called nanites. That allowed her to reshape her body parts into any weapon. She turned both her arms into blades and shredded the robots into pieces. Just then, Superman's dog Krypto attacked her and slammed her to the ground, but she used her nanite web to trap Krypto with ease. Soon after, they stumbled upon Superman's archive, the old message from his parents. Realizing half of it was damaged, the engineer used her powers to recover the missing parts. What they heard next made Luthor jump with joy. This was exactly what they had been looking for all along. The first part of the message carried his parents' love for him. But the second part? That was terrifying. What was in that message? Well, you'll find out a bit later in the movie. Meanwhile, Luthor had already prepared another major distraction for Superman. In the city of Metropolis, his men unleashed a monster, a creature he had created using genetic engineering. At first, the monster looked small, but soon it grew to an enormous size. It began breathing fire and smashing buildings apart with its tail. And just when all hope seemed lost, Superman arrived on the scene to stop its destruction. First, Superman saves a dog from being crushed under the monster's feet. Using a powerful flash from his eyes, he blasts the dog away to safety. But then this time, he himself gets trapped under the monster's foot. However, because of his superhuman abilities, not even a single scratch touches his body. Breaking through the concrete, he emerges and starts fighting the same monster again. But no matter how hard he tries, he just can't seem to bring down this gigantic beast. And right then, the world's most powerful superhero team arrives, the Justice Gang. This gang includes Queenlander, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Charlie. Each of them has their own unique powers and superhuman abilities. After Superman's failed attempts, the three of them jump in and try to take down the monster together. But even after so much effort, they too seem to be failing. Finally, Mr. Charlie uses his special weapon, the Z-Fire, and drives it right into the monster's stomach. Instantly, a massive explosion takes place inside, and the beast's guts almost melt away. At last, the monster collapses and crashes to the ground. As soon as people around see this, they start running away from the scene. Superman gently lays the monster down. But here's the shocking part. Even after such a massive rescue mission, nobody claps or thanks Superman or the Justice Gang. Why? Because everyone's attention is glued to the giant TV screens outside the shopping mall. On those screens, Superman's parents' message is being broadcast live. The first part of the message seems pretty normal. Anyone listening would think it's just a heartfelt message. But in the second part, the one recovered by Luthor, lies the real horror. Superman's Kryptonian parents are telling him, the people of Earth are very simple-minded, so when you grow up, you will establish authority over them. And if anyone dares to disobey you, you'll crush them without mercy. Then you will take countless women from Earth back with you to preserve the Kryptonian bloodline. What? Now you get it, right? This is exactly why Luthor and the engineer were so happy after recovering the full message. And as soon as people see this broadcast on the big screen, all the love and admiration they had for Superman vanishes in an instant. Even Superman himself is completely stunned. People start throwing stones at him, cursing him, calling him a threat. From that moment, the world no longer sees him as their hero, but as an alien danger. Luthor takes full advantage of this moment and, in a live interview, paints Superman as an even bigger villain. Plus, now that Superman's secret fortress has also been exposed, people actually believe the message to be true. Even the Justice Gang starts doubting him. Superman, on the other hand, tries to explain that he had no idea about this message because it had always been damaged before. Now the real question is, how did Luthor and his team even get their hands on this message? Superman doesn't waste a second and rushes straight to his fortress. But what he sees there leaves him heartbroken. All his Kryptonian robots are lying damaged and broken. He tries to ask one of them how Luthor got inside, but before it can explain, it completely shuts down. Suddenly, he remembers Krypto. Whistling loudly, he desperately calls for his dog. But when he gets no response, Superman almost goes insane. Meanwhile, in Garabia, President Karkos delivers a fiery anti-Superman speech on TV and then enters Luthor's pocket universe to meet him. This pocket universe proves just how much of a genius Luthor really is. It's basically a tiny universe created inside Earth using the laws of physics. No information goes in, no information comes out. Sunlight doesn't even reach it. It's like a dark cave floating in nothingness. And inside this pocket universe, Luthor runs all of his secret operations. Now, when Karkos enters, we finally learn why Luthor has been helping Garabia so much. The real reason is not just profits from his weapons business. Karkos promised to give Luthor half of Jahalpur. Yes, literally half a country under his ownership. But despite all this, Luthor doesn't look fully satisfied. Because he expected to find some kind of ultimate clue inside the Fortress of Solitude to completely destroy Superman, but he didn't get what he wanted. Anyway, after meeting Karkos, Luthor returns to his office. Meanwhile, Superman, frustrated and furious, flies straight to Luthor's building. Smashing through the glass, he confronts him face to face and demands to know, "Where are you keeping Crypto?" At first, Luthor pretends ignorance, saying he doesn't know about any dog named Crypto. But then he smirks and says, "Oh, you mean that ugly mutt?" From his words, it becomes clear that Crypto has been locked away in the pocket universe. Superman yells at him in rage, but Luthor secretly records this footage to use against him later. Helpless, Superman leaves and returns to Lois. There, he tells her that he truly had no idea about this message. He always believed that his parents sent him to Earth to protect humanity. Lois comforts him, saying, "Even if the world doubts you, I know how pure you are. And even if this message is true, I know you'll never follow it." Like a perfect life partner, she stands by his side in his darkest time. Superman then explains that he's going to meet Luthor in his secret hideout, where he will be interrogated about the message and the fortress. He knows Luthor is just setting a trap, but he also knows this is the only way he might be able to reach Crypto. So, saying goodbye to Lois, Superman surrenders himself. Altman drags him away like a captured criminal and throws him inside the pocket universe. There, Luthor reveals that he has designed this metaverse in such a way that it can be accessed from different places on Earth. Inside, he shows Superman all sorts of bizarre things he uses for his operations. For example, there's an army of monkey-like robots he calls monkey bots, whose sole job is to spread negativity about Superman all over the internet. There are also prison cells, where Luthor has locked up several people, including his ex-girlfriend. Yep, genius or not, he's a full-blown psychopath. Then, Luthor introduces Superman to another metahuman, Metamorpho. This superhero has the ability to transform his body into any substance in the universe. Luthor brought him here for one purpose: to convert parts of his body into kryptonite. Now, kryptonite radiation doesn't affect humans, but for a Kryptonian like Superman, it's fatal. The moment Metamorpho transforms his hand into kryptonite, Superman instantly starts losing all his powers, collapsing in weakness. But here's the twist. Metamorpho didn't come here willingly. Luthor has imprisoned his little boy in one of his cells and is blackmailing him. Seeing the child locked up, Superman begs Metamorpho, "If you return me to my normal state, I can rescue your son right now." But Metamorpho refuses to take the risk, because he knows escaping from Luthor's pocket universe is nearly impossible. Luthor then taunts Superman, saying, "I could kill you right now if I wanted, but first I need to interrogate you in front of the governments. And after that, you're never leaving this place alive." Meanwhile, Lois continues investigating Luthor from her office. She discovers that in the last year, Garabia bought weapons worth $80 billion from Luthor, but only paid $1.4 billion. That means Luthor practically gave away the rest for free. Clearly, something fishy is going on. She's almost at the truth about Luthor's secret deal for half of Jahalpur. At the same time, her colleague Jimmy Olsen tells her that Luthor has trapped Superman in the pocket universe. But how did Jimmy find out? Well, turns out Luthor's girlfriend, Eva, has secretly started a relationship with Jimmy because she's been wanting to leave Luthor for a long time. Jimmy, in return, pretends to love her just to extract crucial information. After learning about the pocket universe, Lois rushes to meet the Justice Gang. Their leader, Green Lantern, admits that he knows about Superman's Kryptonian heritage and his real name, Kal-El. But even though they're Superman's close friends, they hesitate to help him. Lois reminds them that Superman has never harmed anyone. Mr. Terrific then reveals that he had once injected Superman with kryptonite nanobites. Tracking them, he found Superman's last location, and it confirmed that he really is trapped inside Luthor's pocket universe. Meanwhile, Eva keeps messaging Jimmy to meet. When they finally do, Jimmy tries to get more intel, but Eva confronts him. Are you only in this relationship for information? Jimmy assures her that he wants to free her from Luthor's control. She then reveals that before trapping Superman, Luthor tortured Krypto mercilessly in his prison cells. Back to Lois. No matter how hard she tries, she can't convince the Justice Gang to rescue Superman. Green Lantern flat out says he doesn't want to get into political messes, and since Superman is now considered a federal criminal, saving him would mean going against the government itself. Disappointed, Lois walks away. But then Mr. Terrific stops her, saying, "First, I need to confirm if Luthor's pocket universe is real. Only then will I decide if I can help." Remember, Terrific is known as the smartest superhero on Earth, and we're about to find out why he takes this pocket universe so seriously. He takes Lois aboard his high-tech flying saucer, the T-Classic, and quickly tracks the portal gate of the pocket universe using GPS. As soon as they arrive, Luthor's metahumans and robot army confront them, warning them to stay back. But Terrific doesn't even flinch. The army launches a full-scale attack, and instantly, Terrific creates a shield around Lois. Then, using his T-spheres, he single-handedly wipes out the entire army. Thanks to his shield, Lois doesn't even get a single scratch. Man, I gotta say, this level of genius superhero fighting is something you don't see every day. After annihilating Luthor's army, Terrific takes Lois straight to the portal gate of the pocket universe. When he realizes that Luthor has actually created a separate universe inside Earth, his rage explodes. Because attempting something like this risks the lives of every single human on the planet. One small mistake, and the entire Earth could collapse into a black hole. On top of that, every time someone passes through this portal, the curvature of space-time gets weaker and weaker, making the chance of a black hole forming even greater. Now, even then, Terrific hacks into the portal using his T-spheres and steps inside. These round T-sphere devices can do everything from fighting to high-tech tasks, but the portal they entered wasn't the actual gateway to the pocket universe. The real gate was further away, and in between these two gates lies the anti-proton river. The moment anyone falls into it, their body's every atom will split apart. Luthor used to cross this path with his flying lift, but now that lift has already gone inside the pocket universe with him. So Terrific decides to keep an eye on everything using his T-spheres. Meanwhile, after torturing Superman, Luthor brings forward a prisoner named Molly, someone who once helped him after losing to Ultraman. While questioning Superman, Luthor begins playing Russian roulette with Molly in front of him. Even though Superman begs him to stop, Luthor keeps asking silly questions just to play. On the second round, the revolver fires, and Molly dies instantly. Superman breaks down in grief, crying within himself. Sitting right beside him, Metamorpho too gets traumatized and starts crying. Then he says, "You promised me that you would free my son, didn't you?" And as he says that, he changes his hand back from kryptonite to its normal state, which finally lets Superman breathe freely again. But still, Superman was far too weak, because to regain his powers, he needed yellow sunlight. That's when Metamorpho uses his powers to trigger a chemical reaction and literally creates a yellow sun. And instantly, Superman regains all of his strength, shattering the prison cell with a single punch. He then frees Metamorpho, his son Joey, and his superdog Krypto. But right then, Luthor's army storms in. During the fight, Joey slips from Metamorpho's hands. Superman rushes to save him, but in doing so, he himself falls into the anti-proton river. Holding Joey in one hand, Superman struggles while Metamorpho keeps fighting Luthor's soldiers. Using acid attacks, Metamorpho takes down several of them. Meanwhile, Superman drifts deeper into the anti-proton stream and ends up near a black hole. Because of Luthor's pocket universe, a black hole had already formed. At the same time, Terrific, through his T-spheres, spots Krypto flying in and is shocked. Superman was on the verge of being sucked into the black hole. And as you all know, once a black hole pulls you in, that's game over. But with Metamorpho's help, Superman manages to escape falling into it. Then, by seeing the T-sphere, Superman realizes that Terrific must be nearby. Following the T-spheres, they finally make their way out through each portal. Metamorpho goes back with his son, while Terrific asks Lois to take Superman away in his T-craft, since Superman was still weak due to kryptonite exposure. Terrific stays back near the portal, because stabilizing it was extremely urgent. When Lois arrives, Superman gets very emotional. She then takes him to his adoptive parents, Jonathan and Martha. Meanwhile, Luthor, realizing he's losing control in his absence, goes completely mad. After yelling for a while, in rage, he even throws a pencil at Eva. Crying, Eva calls Jimmy, telling him she has enough information to destroy Luthor, but only if Jimmy promises to spend the entire weekend with her. But since Ultraman overhears this, Luthor's men capture Eva. Before they drag her away, she manages to send tons of pictures to Jimmy's phone. Afterward, she's locked inside a prison cell. On the other side, Lois takes the weakened Superman home. Jonathan and Martha get deeply worried, but Lois assures them that Superman will recover soon. Later, when Lois receives Eva's messages, at first she gets annoyed, since most of them were just selfies. But suddenly, she notices something in the background of those pictures. Realizing what it was, she immediately rushes to meet Jimmy. Meanwhile, even though Luthor's secrets had leaked, he still cooks up another plan to kill Superman. He reopens his unstable pocket universe portal, which results in a dimensional grid. When two universes come into contact like this, everything becomes unstable, and matter begins to disintegrate. This phenomenon is called the dimensional grid. Luthor now wants to use this grid as a trap for Superman. But his scientist Sydney and his engineer repeatedly warn him. He doesn't listen. Using computer programming, he forces the portal open, spreading the dimensional grid everywhere. As the grid advances, reality itself begins to split into two. The next morning, Superman wakes up deeply upset, still tormented by his father's words. Jonathan had told him, "A man is judged by his actions, and those choices aren't your parents', they're yours." Just then, Martha calls him inside to watch TV. On screen, it's shown that in Superman's absence, Karkos is preparing to attack Zarhanpur again. Superman wants to go there, but Terrific contacts him and informs him about the dimensional grid, because by now, the grid was already approaching Metropolis, cutting everything in its path into two. Terrific tries his best to stop it, but fails, since only Luthor has the shutdown code. Metropolis is evacuated quickly, but before most people could leave, the grid reaches the city. Superman rushes in to save people from collapsing buildings. Suddenly, Ultraman and Engineer attack him, exactly as Luthor had planned. Meanwhile, Lois and Jimmy inform their boss Perry about Luthor's scheme. Turns out, in every selfie Eva had sent, the background revealed maps and contract papers proving Luthor was planning to claim half of Zarhanpur. Once Perry learns this, he wastes no time publishing Luthor's crimes through the Daily Planet. Back in Metropolis, when the grid nears Luthor's office, he detaches his office room from the building and floats it separately. From there, he feeds Ultraman and Engineer all of Superman's fight moves. After some brutal fighting, the two overpower Superman. Following Luthor's orders, Engineer begins injecting nanites into Superman's body, planning to suffocate him by filling his lungs. But Superman uses his ability to hold his breath and fights back. Then, flying at full speed upward, he tries to escape. Luthor instructs Engineer to cover Superman entirely with nanites. When Superman soars high up, they manage to grab him again. This time, he dives down at tremendous speed. Engineer panics, warning that such a fall would kill him. But Luthor realizes that with his body covered in nanites, Superman would survive. If Ultraman didn't die, then Engineer surely wouldn't survive this impact. And just as expected, when Superman crashes down at lightning speed, Engineer faints from the impact, though Ultraman remains unharmed. At this point, Superman realizes Ultraman is actually his own clone. Luthor then reveals that he created Ultraman from just a single strand of Superman's hair. That meant Luthor had access to his DNA all along. And that's how they were able to infiltrate the fortress. A vicious fight breaks out between Superman and his clone. Even though Superman gives him a tough fight, Ultraman overpowers him again. Meanwhile, the Borean army launches a full-force attack on Zarhanpur. But suddenly, Green Lantern, Hawkeye, and Metamorpho arrive to help because Superman had called for backup. Green Lantern alone wipes out the entire Borean army within minutes using his magical powers. President Karkos tries to escape, but Hawkeye drops him from the sky, sending him straight to hell. The people of Zarhanpur celebrate their victory, thanking the heroes. Back in the city, Luthor tells Superman that the war between Borea and Zarhanpur was just an excuse. His real goal was to kill Superman, because he couldn't stand humans idolizing an alien. According to him, humanity's increasing dependence on Superman was dangerous. Therefore, in his view, Superman didn't deserve to exist on Earth. Saying this, he signals Ultraman to finish Superman. But at that exact moment, Superman whistles for his superdog Krypto. Following his command, Krypto disables all of Luthor's surveillance cameras, the same cameras through which Luthor had been feeding fight instructions to Ultraman. With the cameras gone, Ultraman loses all support. Superman seizes the opportunity, finally overpowering his clone. Their battle takes them near the black hole, and with one powerful punch, Superman throws Ultraman straight into it, ending him once and for all. All of Luthor's plans are now ruined. On top of that, the news exposes all his dirty secrets, how he tried to take over half of Zarhanpur. Afterward, Superman and Terrific storm into his office. Terrific quickly codes a shutdown to stop the dimensional grid, saving the Earth from destruction. Superman makes one last attempt to explain to Luthor that even though he's an alien, he still feels every human emotion. But as the saying goes, a thief never listens to the words of faith. Luthor ignores him and keeps screaming. That's when Krypto pounces and bites him, leaving him injured. He's then arrested and taken away. With everything finally over, Superman spends time with Lois. After saving Zarhanpur, Green Lantern invites Metamorpho to join the Justice Gang, and together, all the superheroes rebuild the nearly destroyed Metropolis back to its original glory. In the very final scene, we see Superman's cousin, Supergirl, drunkenly entering his fortress. From this, we get a clear hint that the next movie will feature a cousin versus cousin matchup. So finally, this incredible superhero movie ends on a happy note. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe. We'll meet again in the next video. Until then, stay well and stay safe.